to happen. And I'm sorry.
Dad.
Certain stories haunt you, not because they were the loudest headlines, but because you eventually stop seeing them as news and start feeling them personally. Mecca Duchino's life is exactly that sort of tale. A baby girl from Fargo, North Dakota, with just 15 months to her name, and a legal case that, in December 2021, left everyone in that courtroom sobbing, including the judge and the prosecutor. Even professionals trained to be stoic lost their composure. My heart goes out to the family. I am truly sorry. I never wanted anything bad to happen. And I am just so deeply sorry. It's hard to fathom that this occurred so close to my own home. Fargo is taking a turn for the worse. Today, we are going to walk through this entire account. No filler, just the evidence, the people involved, and the reality of what happened. Because Mecca deserves to be honored as a human being, not a mere statistic. Thank you for joining me. Every person who clicked on this video has already made an impact. I'm Kevin. This channel is for those who should never be forgotten and for histories that have no business fading away. Subscribe and hit the bell. There are more accounts like this coming up. Watch until the finish and drop your city and time in the comments. I personally read every one. It truly matters to me to see where you are all watching from. On August 1st, 2019, Manuel Curillo and Cheyenne Ducheneaux brought a baby girl into this world. They named her Mecca Marie Duchino. If she were with us today, she'd be starting kindergarten, practicing her alphabet, and falling asleep to a bedtime story. But that future never arrived. And that is exactly why we are here. From her earliest months, Mecca was a child you couldn't help but adore. Calm, curious, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold the whole world. She reacted to voices early, reaching for people with a smile that made every adult smile right back, even on their worst days. Kids like her seem to exist to remind us that there is still something purely good in this life. By October 2020, she had just hit the 15-month mark. She was sitting up strongly, babbling in a secret language only she could decipher. Dada, quit sucking your thumb. No. Say da. She was also right in the middle of learning how to walk. That precious, wobbly stroll that makes every tiny step look like a massive win against gravity. Papa! Nana! With her dark hair, chubby cheeks, and those wide, watchful eyes, she took in everything around her. It was as if she were memorizing every detail of this vast new world. She was hitting every milestone, a healthy, active, and joyful child. Some kids demand your attention. Mecca was different. She attracted people just by being herself, a gentle soul who rarely cried without a very good reason. Her curiosity wasn't about grabbing at things, but in her long, steady gaze. It was as if she were evaluating every new object or person. Once she decided you were safe, she'd reach for you without any doubt. That open heart was her best quality, but as we'll see, it was also what made her most at risk. Little Mecca already had her own daily habits. Those small things children do that adults remember for a lifetime. Every morning, her first move was reaching for her Aunt Amanda. There were no words yet, so she used her actions to communicate. She'd just stretch her arms up with a look that left no question about what she wanted. Every night, she could only sleep with one specific stuffed animal. If that toy was missing, the whole house went on a search mission. These tiny details don't seem huge when they're happening, but they become heartbreaking once they're gone. By then, Mecca was being cared for by her paternal aunt, Manuel Curillo. Her father, Manuel, was in jail at the time. Her mother, Cheyenne, was facing struggles that made it impossible to raise her daughter alone. Amanda took her niece into her Moorhead home in Minnesota, where she was already raising other children. For Mecca, that meant older cousins, a sister aged 3, and an aunt who loved her as her own. Amanda would later describe those months as a time when the house was overflowing with the sounds of play. There is one specific laugh that she says will stay with her for the rest of her days. In that household, Mecca was the baby, which immediately put her at the heart of the family's world. The big kids watched over her with a fierce sense of duty that only surfaces when children are tasked with protecting a tiny life. A 3-year-old guided her through the house, acting like a professional docent while showing off every single plaything. She soaked it all up with pure joy. She flourished in any setting filled with people and laughter. Amanda often recounts a specific, unremarkable Tuesday night. It wasn't a party or a milestone, just the quiet conclusion to a very exhausting shift. She was resting on the carpet, spent, while the baby began trekking across the living room floor toward her. Scrambling over scattered blocks and siblings' legs, she moved with that intense focus unique to a 15-month-old on a mission. She arrived, gripped tight, and snuggled in. Amanda admits she never realized how vital it was to cherish that hug. There was no reason to worry. She expected to have thousands of identical moments in the years ahead. Sadly, those future opportunities never came. Another person was also very present. 37-year-old Brandy Lynn Adel, a Fargo resident, had been Amanda's closest companion for 5 years and a trusted family fixture. She'd attended every holiday and watched the kids grow, becoming intimately familiar with their daily quirks and schedules. Amanda had previously relied on her for childcare during hectic times, and those arrangements had always been perfectly safe. Half a decade is plenty of time to stop seeing someone as a stranger. Millions of parents make that same choice daily. They place their world in someone else's hands and head to work, believing that people are fundamentally decent at heart. That level of reliance isn't being gullible. It is a basic requirement for navigating modern life. Normalcy requires that leap of faith, yet it is exactly where we are most vulnerable to the unthinkable. Consequently, the offer Adele made in late October of 2020 didn't seem suspicious in the slightest. She proposed a fun Halloween sleepover for a few days. For Amanda, it felt like a standard request from a dear friend. She packed up the toddler's gear, kissed her goodbye, and watched her drive away with the woman. On October 28th, 2020, she left with Adele. No one realized that final wave would be their last memory of her healthy. When pickup day finally arrived, Adel claimed a positive virus-19 test in the flat meant the child had to stay for a mandatory quarantine. It sounded plausible. Adel, 19. This was 2020. With the pandemic peaking, such disruptions were a common reality for families everywhere. Amanda took her word for it. However, as weeks passed, new excuses constantly emerged to keep the girl away from home. Cops later proved the virus was fake. The whole story was a sham. For 23 days, the child was kept behind a locked door on 17th Street South. She was completely isolated from her relatives and everyone who provided her with safety and warmth. Her tiny world was gone. The family remained oblivious to the horrors occurring inside that apartment. People nearby heard the sounds of distress, but didn't intervene, assuming it was just typical behavior in a crowded complex. On the evening of November 20th, 2020, a call reached Fargo Dispatch reporting an unresponsive infant. Medics arrived on the scene and immediately rushed the child to the regional medical center. Upon her arrival in a coma, the trauma team discovered injuries that completely ruled out any possibility of an accident. A heavy, haunting silence filled the hospital ward, a memory that everyone present that night still carries with them. The parents got a call that night. That single conversation shattered their world, creating a permanent line between their past and an agonizing future. Racing to the hospital, they stepped into a scene that felt like a terrifying movie set. They found a room full of monitors and medical staff, whose somber faces conveyed what words couldn't. At the center lay their 15-month-old daughter, her life sustained only by the rhythmic pumping of medical machinery. For 4 days, they stood vigil, whispering to her and holding her hand, hoping she could still sense their presence. After 4 days of desperate medical intervention, on November 24th at 8:08 a.m., her father made the impossible call. Mecca Marie Duchino was gone. She had lived 481 days. Thank you for listening. Please consider leaving a like on this video. It's a small gesture to honor her memory and ensure her tragic story reaches those who never knew her name. Each reaction honors her memory and significance. We now move into the chapter her family still struggles to recount. The police work, the legal battle, and a dad's courtroom testimony that left a permanent mark on everyone present. Detectives reached Sanford Medical Center during that cold November evening, where medical professionals presented findings so clear it was impossible to ignore. This tragedy wasn't the result of some brief, tragic oversight or momentary lapse. Her wounds spoke of a prolonged nightmare occurring in secret, hidden from the family who truly cared for her. Officers pursued the lead with surgical precision, questioning those involved, piecing together a minute-by-minute log, while comparing the suspect's story to the hard physical proof. Her version was that she stepped away from the bathtub and came back to find the girl unconscious. Forensic analysis quickly proved that her narrative simply didn't match reality. The coroner's findings were so haunting they'd leave a lasting scar on any reader. Assistant State's Attorney Ryan Youngren, a veteran legal mind, chose to keep those graphic details out of the public hearing, shielding the grieving relatives from the clinical, brutal descriptions of the harm inflicted on their precious girl. He extended this same empathy to the family, not out of duty, but out of genuine kindness, knowing some horrors can never be forgotten once heard. By January 14, 2021, 2 months post-incident handcuffs finally clicked on Brandy Adel. 2 charges were leveled: homicide and aggravated mistreatment of a minor. Bail stood at $1 million as local authorities continued their deep dive. Responders rushed to the 2300 block of 17th Street South late Friday evening. Brandy Adeliki is now jailed for murder. Law enforcement noted that intensive scrutiny led the coroner to officially classify the child's passing as a killing. Callie Hubbard, reporting on the scene for Valley News Live in South Fargo. 60 days. That's the agonizing gap between the girl's passing and the suspect being taken in. As the family held her funeral and Amanda struggled to tell the siblings why she was never coming home, as Manuel learned of his child's fate from a cell, the perpetrator walked the streets as a free woman. Police work takes time, naturally, but for those grieving, that 2-month wait was a silent, agonizing nightmare. On February 6, 2021, a quiet service honored the child's memory, with Amanda setting up a digital broadcast for all wishing to pay respects. Under heavy guard and shackled, the father was granted a brief window to attend the burial, a heartbreaking way for a parent to bid farewell. Then, just before the trial kicked off on September 7, 2021, Adeleke flipped her stance. Abandoning her innocence claim, she admitted guilt to every single charge. She faced the ultimate penalty, spending her entire life behind bars with zero chance at freedom. On December 6, 2021, the Cass County courtroom was filled with every soul impacted by the tragedy. Relatives, legal teams, journalists, Judge Stephen Marquardt, the prosecutor, and the defendant were all present, as the accused was offered a final chance to speak before her fate was sealed. Facing the judge, she provided zero insight into the horrors of those 23 days. There was no explanation or attempt to voice the unspeakable. She simply stood for a moment before returning to her seat. Her lawyer, Stephen Modinger, urged for leniency, pointing toward potential contributing factors, citing her psychological background, and painting the event as something other than a calculated act. The gallery observed and formulated its own private conclusions. Taking the stand, Amanda voiced her loss, explaining the crushing sensation of entering her own home today. The heavy silence where a voice used to be hearing other kids play while one specific laugh is missing forever. Stepping inside brings a wave of agony because the void is so palpable. Hearing my other children's joy hurts because there's a gap I can't bridge. I can't fathom how anyone could snuff out a blameless life, or what a toddler could possibly do to deserve such cruelty. Finally, the girl's father stood up. Manuel Curillo, who heard of the tragedy while incarcerated, unable to shield her from afar, who was forced to mourn at a funeral in chains before being hauled back to a prison cell. Rising to his feet, the man faced the woman who'd robbed him of his only girl and pleaded with the court for leniency. He didn't demand the harshest penalty or life behind bars. He chose the path of grace instead. He He emphasized that a maximum sentence wasn't his goal, recognizing that no amount of jail time would return his child. Despite the tragedy, he maintained that the defendant hadn't completely forfeited her chance to eventually lead a life of her own. A heavy, unshakable stillness took over the courtroom, leaving everyone present at a total loss for words. Even Judge Marquardt found it impossible to dry his eyes during such a profound display. Prosecutor Yunrin later called it the most staggering scene of his legal career, a grieving parent advocating for the person who broke him. That instant remains etched in the minds of those present, continuing to ignite intense debates for anyone who hears the tale. The judge ultimately factored the father's plea for compassion directly into the final sentencing decision. Brandy Lynn Adel was handed a 30-year prison term, though the door remains open for eventual parole. After serving 25 to 30 years, he remarked that her life still held value and was something worth redeeming. "My heart goes out to the family. I am truly sorry and offer prayers for peace." This means by 2046, when Adel is 63, she can seek freedom. That same year, Maya would have hit 27. She might have been pursuing a career, chasing dreams, or perhaps building a home of her own. She could have cradled her own baby, just as she was once held during those brief, peaceful months of her infancy. Yet, while she is gone, the one who took her gets a shot at redemption. The cold logic of the sentence is jarring. That harsh reality is precisely why the whole situation feels so incredibly difficult to swallow. Throughout the entire trial, Cheyenne Ducheneaux, Maya's birth mother, chose to remain completely silent and avoided making any public statements. Her quietness adds a complex layer to this tragedy, one that doesn't have an easy or singular justification. Mourning takes many forms. For some, it is a hushed withdrawal. Amanda returned to a residence that seemed physically unchanged. The layout was identical. The other kids were there. The morning routine continued, yet a vital presence had simply vanished. No more soft cooing from the nursery, no tiny playthings carpeting the floor, no small hands reaching out for a hug. There was a void so profound that the very walls of the house seemed unable to grasp the magnitude of the loss. Even now, the siblings occasionally wonder when Meka will return, leaving the grown-ups struggling to find the right explanation. Mecca Marie Duchino's journey lasted exactly 481 days. While her passing didn't capture the nation's attention, she remains unforgettable to those who truly knew and loved her. Those close to her still ache for a specific laugh that no longer echoes through the halls, and that is more than enough. I truly appreciate you sticking with us until the very end. Your support means a great deal. Please pass this story along to someone who might find it meaningful and add it to your library for future viewing. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let out whatever you're feeling, because keeping quiet after such a powerful story is nearly impossible. You do not have to carry that silence alone.